Hi. I wanted to express some of my thoughts about NCT in the unpopular opinions video, but there was so much that I decided to make a separate one for that. NCT is my ultimate group that I've been standing since I just got into pop, and there are many things that I think we need to finally bring up. These may be very subjective, and all of the points I mention are up to your discussion. Hope you enjoy. 1. It was expected for NCT Dream's concept to fail. I think that by this time everyone, especially the companies, know that the fans always get attached to the groups as well as the members to each other. And produced groups are the best example. The group spends so much time together that it seems that it would never be the same without its current members or with the new ones. It's not just about NCT Dream's incredible chemistry. Any group has the so-called chemistry because you cannot not have it if you spend so much time together. Considering that we literally NCT Dream growing up, of course the fans would be disappointed if the group they're already gotten used to would change. If in case of the produced groups the members already have plans with other companies, this is not the same with NCT members, which sadly or not will stay in the SM dungeon. Personally, I was excited to see other members coming into NCT Dream, and I'm sure we would get used to the new group, but you know how much anger it would bring. NCT is already not the most peaceful and conflict-was group in the industry, so it was obvious that they wouldn't let the graduation system happen. Come back now, you've had too much rest. 2. NCT 127's music is going downhill. This one makes me so sad, considering that NCT 127's discography was one of the most flawless among boy groups in K-pop in this generation for sure. They had a great strategy, 2 comebacks a year with mini albums, which meant that there was just enough of music released that was very high quality. Even including the Japanese comebacks, there were hardly any fillers, with a lot of versatility. However, something was off in the last 2 years. Starting from Superhuman, where, although the title track and Highway to Heaven were amazing, some of songs like Paper Plane were completely forgettable, which surprised me a lot. After that, there was Kick It with a full album, and although I really enjoyed the content and mini MVS they released, eventually I listened to just 2 to 3 songs, and probably any of their old songs could beat those. Overall, Non-Stop was the only track from NCT 127 I could highlight at the end of the year. At first I thought I was the only one who had the same problem with this group's music, but apparently not. It feels like all of the great songs were given to Super M. It's a great shame that my interest for NCT 127 is slowly fading away, and I'm not as excited about their music as much as I used to be. SM is using some of the foreign members just for their fanbase. It took me quite a while to admit that, but let's be honest, some of the members of NCT play a little to no role in the group's performances. They have little or no lines in the songs, no center and screen time. No matter what people say, line distribution matters, because otherwise what's the point of the member in the music group? Nobody says they should get as many lines as the main vocalist, or center time as the center, but sometimes it gets to the point of humiliation, where the member just says only whoa whoa between the verses or something. There is no excuse for companies to do that. Back then, before Kick It, where Johnny developed his six-pack and SM finally noticed him and gave some lines. I literally saw a thread on Reddit where the author was asking what was the point of Johnny being an NCT. People were saying something like, well, he is a good dancer and dances in the back, so that the group's performance looks consistent, not like only good dancers are in the front blah blah blah. I'm sorry guys, but it gets too ridiculous. Johnny is my ultimate bias, but at that time I could honestly admit that I couldn't see why SM even made him debut, apart from the Johnny's Communications Center, which was made clearly for the English-speaking fans. And although Johnny's situation has improved, the same problem is still relevant for Win-Win. SM literally made a Chinese group so that he could feel as comfortable as possible, but nothing changed, and he is still treated like a backup dancer. The only reason for him to be in the group is his massive fanbase in China. It's really sad to say, but I honestly think that if SM didn't let him debut and he'd go to another company, he would be treated so much better and would play a bigger role in the group. Also, I definitely feel like Yuta is also underestimated tremendously. In any other K-pop group he would certainly be a center, the main dancer or something. He could easily go solo. But in NCT he's just a quote-unquote Japanese clone of Taeyoung. These boys have gone through so much, and I'm really afraid that they'll have the same destiny as EXO's ex-members. 4. I'm not sure whether the concept of the endless amount of members will work. Today, there is 23 members in NCT. As we've already seen, SM has a huge problem with proper management of idols. Some of the overwork, some of them are almost unknown for some of the fans. The center goes most of time to the same people, Taeyong, Jino, Jimin, Lucas, Ten etc., and perhaps this may be inevitable in a such group. Although I can admit that the distribution was relatively fair in Resonance 2020, the vocalists even got a separate song. I have a feeling that this type of concept won't be able to make the members shine. Some of them will probably never do that. Although I actually love big groups, even with 17 you can see that the members are hardly appreciated as individuals, despite Ino being one of the top dancers in the history of K-pop, Myo being on the level of Jimin, DK and Seungkwan astonishing vocals etc. Although we all know that SM is rich like CEO entrepreneur Jeffrey Bezos. I don't think it will be able to afford SM stations for 35 members, since it prefers to invest into useless survival shows and groups that nobody ever needed. I really like the fact that usually K-pop groups start making sub-units and going solo several years after debut, and there were many examples of those that were super successful and interesting. It's a great chance for them to show all of their talent and do what they actually like, since they're often given some space for creativity and self-producing. You can say NCT's concept is literally making up sub-units, however, it's quite different since there is always Mark or another member that outshines others lol. Also, we all need to acknowledge that we already often forget about some of the members, there are simply too many of them. Imagine what it's like to get into NCT. Personally, I used to be quite uncertain about standing bigger groups, and I'm sure it's one of the many reasons why, for example, Blackpink is so popular. It's simply easier to stand and follow them. Overall, I'm really not sure what is going to happen with the group, which is very unfortunate. Five. NCT is not even close to other SM boy groups in terms of popularity. I may be really wrong about this, but the more I follow the K-pop community, the more I realize that NCT isn't really as popular as you expect a big three group to be. I would probably compare it to GOT7, but it had an incredible competition at that time, EXO, BTS, Big Bang, and it was nearly impossible to beat them. Right now, I feel like even groups from smaller companies get more attention and love from K-pop listeners. Although I see that NCT break many records, but when it comes to the views, award-winning and how they're mentioned in general, they're nowhere close to what SHINee and EXO had. I must admit that I don't know what's happening in Korea and how popular they're there, but I can definitely say that EXO, who have been releasing way less content, seem to be much more popular than NCT. There are many reasons for that, some of them I've mentioned already. Again, I'm an NCT Zen, but I sometimes feel like investing in Red Velvet rather than in 74,438 ASMR videos and vlogs of NCT would be much more beneficial for the company. 6. NCT Dream could be a huge group. Okay, NCT Dream is not my favorite subunit, but if you actually think about it, this group could actually get super popular. It has everything that, for example, BTS have. Its discography is very decent, and in general they fit perfectly into what could appeal to the public. Strong dance and vocal line. Mark's rap. The whole K-pop community simps for Jimin. Every time Jino wears a sleeveless top, the internet stops. Of course, I don't want SM to neglect the rest of NCT, but if NCT Dream are managed well and consistently, they could easily get big. They already have a quite decent discography with abundant and versatile concepts, which attract many fans. In general, I see quite a lot of people standing NCT Dream only, which is absolutely okay, and I would be really happy if SM kept promoting them and the members. 7. WayV's title tracks are absolute masterpieces. When I heard that SM releases a Chinese boy group, I was expecting it to make music that is made specifically for the Chinese community. Like, for example, Niziyu from JYP. Because of that, I was preparing to not like their music, however, they keep surprising me. WayV is making the most K-pop boy groupish music you've ever seen, if you know what I mean. It doesn't mean it's bad, it's just exactly what I expect from a boy group. It's not too experimental or too influenced by the Western producers. They managed to make Mandarin sound so well that I, as a picky listener who listens to Shawn Mendes and Maroon 5 lol, have absolutely no problem listening to. Because I wouldn't say that I really like how the language sounds in normal life. Their concepts are different, but not on the polar sides like with other groups, and the music videos are often way better than those made in Korea. And the title tracks all have at least one part that is very memorable. I actually enjoy their title tracks more than NCT 127's, and their music would never be called noise. The same goes for the B-sides. Can we just talk about their full album being one of the ones I've ever heard? I'm not sure about their popularity in China, but they often reach huge numbers internationally. Everything would be perfect, only if they noticed Win-Win.